Happening today, the case surrounding the death of 11-year-old Jacqueline Torres-Garcia returns to court. 2 of the 3 people charged, including the child's mother and her aunt, expected in court today.
Yeah, her mother is facing a murder charge. The aunt is charged with child cruelty. Your reporter Sierra Jordan live in Torrington with a look at what could happen in court today. Good morning, Sierra.
Good morning, ladies. The mother and aunt of Jacqueline Torres-Garcia have both pleaded not guilty. A pretrial hearing is set for today, and the girl's mother, Carla Garcia, is not expected to appear in court while the girl's aunt is scheduled to be there. The medical examiner determined that Jacqueline Torres-Garcia died from fatal child abuse caused by starvation. Investigators say her mother, Carla Garcia, told them that Jacqueline had been starved for about 2 weeks leading up to her death in September of 2024. An autopsy report obtained by Channel 3 also found amphetamines in Jacqueline's system, which were not prescribed to her. In an early police interview, Garcia initially claimed that her ex-boyfriend had pushed Jacqueline down the stairs, but investigators say she later admitted to starving her daughter. Now, earlier this week, Carla Garcia's boyfriend, Jonathan Nanita, who is also charged with murder, has entered a plea of not guilty in court. Now, we will be in the courthouse later on today, and we'll bring you the latest developments, both on air and the WFSB Plus app. Your reporter live in Torrington, Sierra Jordan, Channel 3 Eyewitness News. Back to you guys.